Our Texas population is now over 29 million, and we're growing by more than 1,100 people per day. By 2050, our population is expected to double. Considering the challenges our state and country have faced through the pandemic, it's important to ask, how will we keep our goods and people moving? Our Texas Constitution dedicates 3/4 of the motor fuels tax and all vehicle registration fees for constructing and maintaining Texas public roadways. The Texas legislature last raised the gas tax in 1991. Since then, it's been 20 cents per gallon. As a matter of fact, 43 states have a higher gas tax than Texas. In 2015, Congress passed the first long-term federal transportation funding bill in over a decade. The FAST Act obligates just over $5 billion to Texas each year. But when congestion continues to outpace funding, state and local leaders turn to toll roads to add capacity. Without this toll revenue, the state would need additional funds to maintain these roads. In 2011, Texas leaders estimated an additional $5 billion per year was needed to keep up with growth and maintain current standards. Then, in 2014, 80% of Texans voted yes on Prop 1 to dedicate a portion of all oil and gas severance taxes to transportation funding. Since taking effect in 2015, Proposition 1 has provided $8.2 billion in funding. In the past, transportation dollars were diverted to other state programs, but in 2015, the Texas legislature ended those diversions by dedicating all transportation revenues to transportation needs. Legislature's action provided $650 million to help fill the $5 billion annual infrastructure funding gap. In 2015, Texas voters again said yes to addressing the $5 billion annual funding gap. A record 83% of Texans voted yes on Prop 7, directing a portion of the general sales tax and motor vehicle sales tax to transportation funding. Since its approval, Proposition 7 has generated $7.5 billion in funding for transportation projects, and Texas drivers are counting on this money just to keep up with current traffic and road safety levels. Texas lawmakers made a promise, and voters overwhelmingly approved additional funding for transportation needs. Texas leaders set a clear goal to maintain existing transportation infrastructure by filling the $5 billion annual funding gap. But some of those infrastructure pillars aren't as stable as they were just a few short years ago. Gas tax revenue has fallen. Since 2018, the Texas Department of Transportation has been in a non-tolled environment. Since that time, that funding source has not been available. There's been an increase in vehicles that don't pay motor fuel tax. The FAST Act has expired, and federal funding is currently under a 1-year continuing resolution. If and where funding falls short, or when a funding source is threatened, our needs won't be met, and the legislature's promise won't be kept. Friends, tell your legislator to keep the promise, Texas.